Okay, next talk is Meet the New Kid in the Sandbox, integrating visualization with Prometheus from Eric.
Quick question, is it being recorded?
That's a good quick question. Is it being recorded? I think yes, yeah.
So we could test the AI with some dirty words, but not if we're being recorded.
Okay, then yeah, welcome.
Okay, here we go. Meeting the new kid in the sandbox. Did anybody attend the observability talk by Joshua earlier? He mentioned in his abstract he was going to talk about Perses, right? But like he bailed on us. I don't understand how he got away with that, but he's right there. Hold him to it later. That's really bad news. Why are we even talking about this? That's the first question I'd like to answer. People are like, why Perses? Why do we need something else? There is something really well known in the observability space right now. Big company, but they changed, some of their licensing, and the open source community stepped up and said, hey, we're missing something in the CNCF landscape, right? There's no observability, visualization, or dashboarding project in there. There really isn't. All these different projects have embedded some stuff in there to visualize what they do, come up with semi-solutions, really specific tools for this. So this was a big thing that they didn't have. The team that's involved with initially doing this Perses project also was pretty heavily involved in Prometheus. So they decided, let's focus on metrics, provide visualization for that, and integrate into all that tooling together with Prometheus, providing the complete ecosystem that we need to do something with observability, right? And then, of course, full open source, you have choice, you can do whatever you want with it, you can walk away, fork it, all that kind of stuff, right? Any questions about this? This is usually where people get a little bit shaky at the beginning about why we're even doing this stuff. So the initial commit is listed there. One of the things that we're very much focused on is something called dashboard as a code, and we're not looking to create a new acronym or anything like that, but when you do dashboards at scale and have thousands and thousands of these across your organization, you're going to find that it's really handy to have a specification for these things so you can work in your CI/CD pipelines and automate the deployment of your dashboards along with your workloads, right? So your developers are doing something out there. If I can just push out code chunks and it turns into a visualization dashboard for them, that's pretty nice, right? That was a big aspect of this. So looking at the GitOps and ability to do that. You'll see a little bit later some of the heavy hitters inside this that are running it right now are from Amadeus. Amadeus pushes a lot of this stuff around. So it's a really good test set that they've used to make sure that this stuff works. Providing embedded visualization. So anything you want to do with this stuff, you can embed somewhere remotely in your organization. So think about in our Kubernetes infrastructures, and we're pushing this stuff out together with each node, maybe, out with our workloads out there, right? Also very much focusing on the Kubernetes environment, so I want to be Kubernetes native. So you're going to find operators, you're going to find container images, you're going to find CRDs all work, all these kind of things that we're used to working with as developers in this space, right? Also the static validation is a big one. Because it's a standard, it's awful nice if you can validate your code and make sure that it's actually going to produce a dashboard and not puke out there when you try to run it, right? Big deal there. They also have a plugin infrastructure where you can do whatever you want inside the plugins to expand on the stuff that's being done. So they're kind of setting up all this infrastructure. All this happened before they came into the CNCF Sandbox. And I thought it's always kind of fun early in an organization that goes these kind of steps inside of an open source project to kind of stop and catch the history of what happened. And I happened to get involved in observability at Chronosphere where I work around the time that this stuff was starting to pick up. And you'll see quite a few commits from Chronosphere developers in the beginning. And so I said, okay, well, this is something I'm going to go look at and help out with if I can. So I started messing around in there. And I started a discussion back in September 2023 at not this year's PromCon, but the PromCon, so the Prometheus conference, with the guy that was leading it, Augustin. We sort of had a side chat about it. And I said, you guys should go into the sandbox, right? I'm an ambassador for CNCF. We should get this stuff rolling in that direction, right? They were initially working out of the Linux Foundation, which is not a bad thing. But the whole goal, the whole thing in their mandate was they wanted to be a CNCF observability project. And so in March, I think they put it together. Second week of August, they actually submitted, and it took 2 weeks. 2 weeks, and it got approved. That was crazy. I don't know if you've seen previous teams, how they've done that, but that's super quick, right? I think they got 110 little thumbs up on the Git issue from non-voting people. So apparently people have been watching this a little bit, right? A lot of people jumped on the bandwagon, so that was really nice to see. Sandbox is the first step, right? First step along the way. You will not see them if you're going to the KubeCon thing with a little teeny booth over there where all the little sandbox things are at. They were too late to apply for that stuff. The target is to do that next year in London. So that should be the first time you'll see everybody there. And most of us are in Europe that are working on it anyway, so that's kind of the team you're going to expect to see. So we talked about how you have a dashboard standard and a way of working with it. They produce an API, as you can see, and I'm stealing a lot of stuff out of a hands-on workshop I'm going to give you when we're done here, so you can see what we put together. You can use your browser just to test it, that it actually works when it's up and running. It's really a simple HTTP thing there. Provides all the different things you need to do, and you notice that all the answers come back in some kind of standard JSON format, right? There's our standardization. You can cut and paste that stuff and move that around your organization. They actually have a command line tool that's provided when you use the actual project code. It's called I don't know exactly if you want to say like kubectl and all that kind of stuff, but it's Percy CLI, PER-CLI. You see here how it works. Like you can get things, you can delete things, create things, and when you're creating them from an actual standardized piece of JSON. Yeah, everybody's used to working with that stuff. You can look at the data sources. We can describe them, cut and paste that code out, and you got a copy of it. Really nice little tool. Also used for the validation, and something that I didn't really highlight too much in here, but this is also a tool you can use to validate existing dashboards, and you can also use it to import Grafana dashboards. The coverage of that import is not complete, of course, because people do all kinds of crazy unorthodox stuff inside of Grafana's. That doesn't really have like a standard code backend to that. But a lot of the stuff has been done, like the thousands of dashboards that they've imported and translated across at Amadeus. So they like to say in the project, most standard things work. So if you're not doing any crazy stuff, it probably works. So when I did this at PromCon, that's where this update came from. They know the project, so I didn't go super deep and hands-on. We can do that at the end if we have some time. I can show you what it looks like, and we can do a little demo and stuff. But this is what you got. When I first made the workshop that I'm going to give you guys later, that's from zero to whether you use the source base and compile the code like in the old days and use it running on your laptop or running it with a container. You could do either one. They did not have, the very first version, they did not have a UI. That's how young this is. So the version they just released this last week is 0.49.0. So it's super young. Realize what you're dealing with. They didn't have any of this. So I was teaching you what the standardization was, what the JSON looked like, and how to modify it and what to do with it. Right? So that's still in the workshop. I keep that in there so then you have an idea. I walk you through what the standard is. Right? So how this is formed, you can look at it any time because they always have a tab down in here that's got JSON on it. So you can go look at what the JSON is and what the standardized form is. When you come in here, it's a pretty big screen. I couldn't get it all on there, but the add panel is at the top. So you're deciding what kind of panel you want. There's a whole list you'll see later in a few minutes. And then you have a preview and the query. And if you recognize the query, it's PromQL, right? Prometheus query language. Very standard, very well known within the metrics landscape. It automatically pops up with whatever you're doing, and then you can switch over to the settings, and the settings gives you more actions based on what you're doing. From changing color, putting thresholds, depends upon what you're working with. There's a whole list, for example, if you go in here and you say, oh, what kind of unit do I want? That's what all these are. So there's all kinds of stuff depending upon the thing you're pulling in. And you can pretty this up, and once you submit it and save it, you end up with your final panel element that's on your dashboard, right? So I'm going to walk you through all the things that we can actually do, which is kind of nice to know. So here's a gauge chart. So a gauge has to do with counting how much of something there is. And one of the things you really like to be able to do is to change the colors on your thresholds, right? You don't want 3 shades of yellow that are hard to understand. Red, yellow, green. You also notice there's the ability to do some stuff around variables. So that means in my data sources, I have multiple instances, multiple jobs, multiple things going on. That's the complexity of a real environment. You can also do these things by putting actual instance names in there if you want. It's also in the process of integrating the PromLens code base, if anybody's aware of that. That is sort of a teaching tool that got put together by Julian Folks. Sorry, was there a question? Oh, that's somebody's computer. What that does is when you type the thing out, it's auto-detecting, and it's also splitting out the query and showing you what the returns are, so you get multiple sections of the query, what the amount that is a return and what it's doing. It kind of teaches you how to do PromQL. Anybody here good at PromQL? Anybody really bad at it? Yeah, it's hard, right? It's a lot of playing around, it's a lot of tweaking. I have a hard time with it too. It's not easy. We have an internal channel called Prom Queens. So please help me with my query, right? So it's a lot of fun play. This right now does auto-completion, but they also have an Explorer on the front end of the UI with the newer versions that lets you start seeing they're integrating that stuff right now. So you're gonna start seeing more and more of that. Time series, one of the more interesting ones, like 3 different instances with jobs. They're all variabilized, so you're getting basically everything. It's a lot more than this. Thresholds. I didn't check in the last one. It's an issue. We can't rename the thresholds yet. You might be able to now, but you see that that's one of the things. But this is I'll get out of the way so you can take the picture. Slides are all online right now, by the way. Save you the trouble. So a lot of little things like that. If you like it, raise an issue. We'll fix it. You know, they'll get to it eventually. It's all these kind of things with Rolling Thunder. You see here also that it's a little bit different story here of things you can do. You can show or not show or fill in, spark lines and all that kind of stuff. It's getting better and better. A documentation panel, basically with what do you call it, Markdown. You can do Markdown and do your documentation, because who here has carried a beeper? Been on call? So you're quite happy when you show up and like you're responsible for a service and all the links to all the troubleshooting playbooks and all that kind of stuff is right up front. This is something you definitely want to have. Shows you immediately what's going on with the code you're making, which is kind of nice. You don't have to go test it somewhere else. It does multi-gauges, so you can get complicated, fancy stuff going on. Here we're doing an app, anybody that knows PromQL that's getting a little bit more funky here. It's a little bit more interesting, and multiple results come back, so you can put them in multiple gauges. Change the colors again and stuff like that. We got tables. This is one of the newer ones. You can select stuff and show it up in a table format. Maybe when you're doing cost reports and stuff like that, that gets a little bit more interesting to have a table. And a bar chart's a brand new one too. So getting there slowly but surely, a little bit of everything. Tracing, didn't hear anybody ask about tracing, but tracing has been integrated by our good friends at Red Hat. So they're also contributing to this project. Kind of a funny story, because when you think of tracing, what do you think of when you think of CNCF? OTEL, right? So if it's OTEL, it's OLTP, OTEL, that, yeah, tongue-tied. But here, this is based on something else. This is based on Grafana's Tempo Trace Query, because it's the very first commit, it's the very first contribution, and they tailored it to their OpenShift container platform, which uses that in the back end right now. And they were kind enough to share what they turned it into. So this is an example of Perses embedded in an actual, I think you guys know what OpenShift container platform is. Container management. Kind of like Kubernetes with the layer. Yeah, there you go. So you see here that they're doing tracing, scatter plots, and all the stuff you would normally expect. But they're just using kind of their own specific thing, and that's all that's in there right now. As any good open source project does, it takes what they can get and implements it, right? Like puts it in the project. Here you see the drill downs into the waterfalls and all that stuff. This is an example inside of my organization where they have put together some dashboards and stuff that are a little bit more complicated for bigger, large-scale organizational stuff. So this is a SaaS platform where a lot of people are being digging into a lot of data. Here's an example of what traces look like at ours. To be fair, this is not using Grafana trace query stuff directly. This is using regular OTel stuff. So, all right. Anybody who wants to go play with it can do it right now. You might even be able to do this on your phone. I'm not sure. When you go to log into this right now, last time I checked, it's sign in with Google or sign in with GitHub. So you sign in, you'll do some Google stuff with your apps and stuff to approve yourself, and then you're in. You get in there and you're going to see a bunch of stuff. We can look at that in a second. You can see a lot of people have been playing with this because they host one instance, and there's no guarantee your stuff will be there when you get back. This option is integrated into my workshop because I think it's pretty cool. And the chances are not really great that you're going to be in the middle of whatever you're doing and they happen to do a new release and restart this thing and wipe all users, wipe all projects. So just be aware that's what happens. The rest of my workshop, if you do it with the source build or you do it with the containers, you can stop it and spin it down and go away and come back later, spin it back up and continue on all the time, right? That's the idea behind that. So one of the things about this is how do I get stuff in here without doing it, clicking and doing it all by hand? You saw I showed you the command line interface, right? The tooling. There's the ability to connect the tooling on the back end of this with the login command. And it's going to ask you some, if you, for example, do it with Google, it'll ask you for some Google verification. It basically asks you to go open your Google app and it'll give you a number and you type it in on the console and then you're in. And then you can do your gets, your pulls, your applies, all this other stuff, right? I'll show you that in a second too. Just like you would do with the local instance. I think it's always kind of fun to, and this was more meant for the PromCon where all the actual Prometheus developers were there because there's quite a few involved. But here you see the top committers from about 3-4 weeks ago, maybe a month. And you see that Amadeus and Chronosphere were the heavy ones in the beginning. That's changing quite a bit. We're seeing a lot of people come in from other places that are doing specifically things that are interest to them, which is how it should be, right? That's kind of how it works. You even see I did a few. I won't lie, I just did docs. Their docs were really horrible, I thought, in the beginning. So what do they always tell you to do? This isn't my first open source project. So I said, hey, I got a workshop. How about I do some user docs, how to get started with this thing? Because what they had at the time were super engineering docs, which is fine. How do I do auth? How do I do API interactions and stuff like that? But those are not a lot of fun when you first spin the thing up and you have no idea what you're looking at, right? You see Red Hat starting to get involved. These will just become more and more. I talked to this guy quite a bit, Andreas. I think it's interesting what they're doing inside OpenShift. So some of the stuff you can build with this, it's quite comprehensive. There's not a lot you're really missing, I think, at this point in time. And it's fairly lightweight, right? We're not talking about some big heavy tool or something that's hard to do something with. It's containerized, so you can spin it up anywhere and everywhere you want to. You can do it in Docker, you can do it in Podman, I don't care. It's a specification, right? A little bit of everything. If you do the workshop, this is exactly what you're going to build from scratch, from nothing all the way up to this. That's pretty cool, huh? I think you guys can do it. So if you want to scan that, this is where the workshop is at. This workshop is Reveal.js, HTML stuff, so you can do this on your phone, can't do the actual code. Though I did one time do a Prometheus workshop where the guy was doing it on a remote instance, logging in through his phone. Couldn't believe it. Instead of walking away, didn't bring his laptop, he tried to do it that way. It's pretty neat. You can do it in a container, you can do it in a source install. Everything inside this, I'm an ex-Red Hatter, so I like the Podman idea more so than the Docker path. But if you do Docker, you'll be able to understand what's going on. It's not that exciting. There's only a slight difference in commands. In a couple of places, I give you the hints around what it is. Okay, we can go play with this a little bit. We have a little bit of time. I wanted to show you the project, the repository. So all this is online. If you go to Schabell.org, I posted it a couple hours ago. It gives you all the different links to it. They are now on, of course, the Perses dev channel on the Cloud Native Computing Foundation stuff because they're in Sandbox. They moved over there. They're on social media on LinkedIn and X, I believe, as Perses Dev. So that's a little bit different than you're normally used to. .io. The workshops listed there is also in the thing there. There's a Prometheus workshop because maybe you're interested in actually putting a backend you can query your own data to. I put the link to the issue where they actually became a sandbox. That's kind of funny to go look at. Don't see a lot of that. And there's a recording of the talk we did in 2023. See if we can do some stuff. If you want to scan that, if you're going to KubeCon, that's our booth. You can come by and get some cool swag and stuff. Let's see what they'll let us do here. So first off, this is logged into the, see how good you guys can see this. Is that big enough? Yeah. So this is demo, the demo one, demo.perses.dev. You see over here they have a recently viewed. I actually imported my dashboard a while ago. They seem to have left it in there, but I'm no longer authorized to do anything with this. So if I go to edit it and try to add some panel, say we're going to do a bar chart, and stat. See what that does. See if we get anything out of that. Oh, there you go. So you see how it automatically fills it out. You can see what you got. You can put some names in it. Regex. Bar chart. We can add it. So this gives you a chance to go play around with whatever you want. So if you look way down in the thing, you'll find the workshop thing in there. If you grab this, you can move it around. You can resize stuff. And also, for example, this is kind of ugly, right? So let's go over here and look at the settings and say, I don't like a spark line. Let's do a percentage. And my company colors are a little bit more that color. There you go. You can add a description. You get little hovering effects. Problem is when I try to save it, it's going to say, you're not authorized to do anything to this dashboard there in the corner, because I didn't create this dashboard. You'll see the exploring. There's a little bit of, and this is just delayed right now. See, this is a little bit slow because of the, I think I see a question back there. Who's got the microphone?
Cheers, thank you. Can you show or describe how Perses does dashboards as code compared to Grafana?
I don't have anything to show you up front. So basically you need a Grafana dashboard, and then you use a CLI. That is well documented, by the way, how to use it and to try it. You can run it through and see what comes out the other side. And to import this here, you would use a CLI to apply that file you get out of it, which gives you, if we go back to the here, when you push it into whatever dashboard you create, what you will be pushing in looks like this. So once it comes through, so if you had a dashboard with just that one thing, you create a project, you push that to that project, it'll come out showing you just that one item with that code in it. So that's a good one for me to put into the, maybe I should take a couple of those dashboards and put them in the workshop, make a lab out of it, how to convert a couple of Grafana ones.
Thanks. Yeah, I think one of the big frustrations I have personally with Grafana is you end up with these just massive JSON files. Trying to like GitOps those, it's just painful, right? So maybe can you just describe, like from a Perses perspective, what would be the benefits of the as code approach that Perses is implementing? Because if you're using JSON as well, is it like heaps smaller, or how does it actually compare?
I have never looked at that, to be really honest. That's a good question. So you just give me two ideas to put into a new lab for the workshop. So I'm not only going to do the conversion, I'm going to look at the size when I get done. That's really good. Thank you. Don't run away. I want to talk to you afterwards, please, because I will forget it. I need to make a bookmark about that. Sorry, I can't answer it. I don't know. If you put that question in the dev channel, the Amadeus guys could probably give you real feedback on what it's like with huge sets of these things.
The table widget looks cool. Is it possible to add links
Sorry?
in that new table widget? Is it possible to add links to like other dashboards the way you can with the Grafana table widget?
I don't know if in that specific widget, or in that specific type, but I have seen that.
Okay, so you can like create
right here.
dashboard hierarchies and
Yeah,
navigation.
right here. See this here?
And then a follow-up question are there any features that have been heavily requested that, like, is there somewhere that someone who wants to contribute could get started? Are there any feature requests that need a developer, things like that?
There definitely is. I didn't go too much into the roadmap because it's pretty fluid, to be honest. And the roadmap is heavily driven by what people want to work on. I mean, it's truly at that phase where people are working on what they like. I know they want the documentation help. I try when I can, but I get sucked away a lot with my day job. So you can always do some stuff in there. It's hard to keep that stuff up to date. It's easy to find mistakes in there and fix that. What else are they working on right now? They just put up, because that's part of the CNCF process, is putting structure into this kind of thing. You have to have a roadmap. You have to have a contributing guide. You have to have this and that. They just put up a roadmap, so I'm not sure exactly what's on it, to be fair.
Cool. Thanks.
But it is there, definitely.
Any more questions?
I got exactly 3 of these, so you can have one. Yours you get later. There's one more question. See how fast the questions come when you give shit away?
Yes, I was just curious about kind of the point of the project. Is it meant to be sort of a CNCF replacement for Grafana, or is it meant to be more of a base toolkit that you embed in your own things, like you just show with OpenShift?
Okay, because this is a recorded talk, I'm going to be as diplomatic as possible. You don't want to rag on any one technology. I really don't. That's not how it works in open source. But they made some changes to the license, which resulted in people looking elsewhere because they have to. So look what happened with other technologies like the container initiative, standardizing so we can make container tooling and not be stuck with one. Kind of got to dance around it, but you get the idea,
okay.
Right?
Yep.
So that's exactly what's going on with this. Not the sole reason it happens, the standardization and noticing that there's no CNCF observability dashboard and visualization project kind of made it an idea to start splitting this stuff out.
Okay.
Anybody here watch Whitney's or see Whitney's YouTube/Lightboard talks and stuff where she does the stuff around? So we've been on that, and they've also done those choose your own technology, and they let several of them compete. This is an example of one of the things. You saw quite a few observability things go by. I think they had to do 3 separate episodes. And I'm like, everybody's talking about dashboard and visualizations on very specific levels of project or specific levels within that architecture we talk about in cloud native. But there's no big one front end thing. And that's kind of what this is trying to harness.
Okay, so the embedding stuff in OpenShift was just them leveraging that, but that's not necessarily like the point of the project.
No, for them it was.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, that was the first tracing example we had, right? That's
right.
officially in the open. And Red Hat's very good about pushing it back upstream. Smaller companies like where I work is a little bit harder to do that all the time. You don't have the manpower to always. We usually do it I do it on my own time. You know, I like it. It's a hobby. So.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, any more questions? We still have 2 minutes, so you can continue if you want.
Okay, so I can show you a little bit on the. So this one's all fun and games, but what's more fun is over here. Is it too small? It's kind of small, huh? There we go. So when you do the workshop, it looks like this. You have a dashboard, just like you just saw. It starts with this and you build from there, right? But what's more interesting is to create your own thing, and it's empty, and we go over here and see if this is visible. Whoops, this way. How's that? All right, so here's the example of, I built it from source, I'm running it from source locally. Could be a container, doesn't really matter. You have to have the command line tool of the same version of the instance you're running, which I have, and I'm logging in, right? Successfully logged in. And now what we want to do is, I have here, let's push a standardized chunk that's the complete workshop finished, right? So I went through there when I updated last time and I was building my own thing to make sure all this stuff works. Pretty quick, pretty fast, pretty easy. And there you go. It all shows up in there. So one of the things about the workshop looks like this. I'll give you a little heads up on this. There's an init.sh file. I try to do init.bat, by the way, for the Windows people out there. Any Windows people out there? Good. Because it's the best effort with no testing, so good luck with that, right? So always somebody comes along that wants to use it, so I always try. I always use it in here, but I'm like, hey, I try to help you, but you need to give me feedback, right? If it doesn't work, fix it, tell me what's wrong, and I'll fix it. The init.sh works. You do it with init.sh space source or space podman. Which path you want to go? Build it from source and install it and run it, or you want to do it in a container thing. So you can do it completely wrapped. You can look in the support directory. There's a functions file with all the things I do underwater to do that. It's very verbose in the console, does a lot of background checks into the things you need, like what version to go and all this kind of stuff. Inside the support directory is well worth looking at. I've been doing these kind of workshops for a while, and one of the questions you always get is, well, I'm an architect, I just want to look at the shit, I don't want to build it, right? I don't want to do all the steps all the way across. So at the end of each one of these workshop versions and stuff, you'll find completely done files that are linked inside there. So each lab will start at a certain point and they'll say, hey, if you don't want to do this, just go here and do this command, and you'll do just what I did. You'll fill up a dashboard with all the answers. So it's all done, you can just go browse it. So if you get really frustrated, you can look at all this stuff. Lab 5, 6, 7, that kind of stuff. And hopefully a new lab 8 with some Grafana migration stuff. I'm working on it, I'm working on it. All right? How's that sound? All right. Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Okay, thank you. And we will be at 4 p.m. with Markus' talk about admission controllers. Thanks.
This guy right there.